Hello everybody and welcome back to more of the Player Guide series. My name is Zen and I'm going to be walking you through another one of our intermediate guides. We're getting kind of close to the end of the intermediate series, so you'll see a little bit of crossover between intermediate and advanced ideas. But this one definitely is not one of those. We're just going to be talking about events and how they work and basically how to understand any Star Wars event that is usually added to the game, because they follow typically the same formula, but we'll talk about that in a second. First, we have to figure out what events actually really are. So events, essentially, from a design standpoint, are pieces of content that are added to the game in order to provide people with something to do outside of the standard stuff that they're already doing. Which is funny because a lot of the events actually add, you know, the same type of gameplay that people are already doing, like dailies, for example. But they do give you a bit of story and they freshen things up quite a bit, actually. It's a little refreshing and most people love events. In reality, though, there are four kinds of events. There are scheduled events. A good example of this is like the Bounties event that happens once a month. It's on a schedule. It'll always happen once a month, so we can kind of always see when it's coming. Then you have the little bit random events, you know, middle of the road, sometimes not random, sometimes completely random, which are like a good example of this is the Gree event. It doesn't always happen, you know, like once every 2 months. It just kind of comes and goes, which isn't necessarily a problem, but it makes it much more difficult to, you know, schedule time in order to actually do it for people who have really busy lives. Then you have seasonal events. These are pretty self-explanatory, but a good example of it is, you know, the Life Day event, which they've made a habit of doing, you know, once a year now. So, you know, that's kind of like a Christmas event, and if they ever add the Halloween one, then that will be something as well. But then you have the old once only ever events. The best example of this is the old Ratghoul event that happened, where you're able to get like infected customizations for companions and a couple other things. You could also get infected by the Ratghoul plague, and all of that was a lot of fun. The problem with this, though, is they've announced that they will never be doing it again, which means people like me, we get to look back and really enjoy the moments we had with it, but for people who are just coming into the game, they'll never be able to experience that. So it's a little bit of give and take to have a once-only event, and it seems to be something they're shying away from now, especially since there is a new Ratghoul event coming that we know of due to the reputation added in the game, and then there's also a world boss or some type of boss added to that. You can see that in your lockouts currently, but if you're watching this in the future and it's already happened, then you already know about that. But for the most part, all of the Star Wars events follow a formula, especially the newer ones, and everything that they've been adding and have been discussing, they all follow the same formula, so you really don't ever need a event guide. You can just keep this stuff in mind. So this actually saves me a lot of trouble having to do event guides, even though I'll probably start doing them in the future as more and more stuff gets started. But for the most part, there will always be, and this is kind of the first part, it's a little bit step by step, there will always be something on the fleet that's telling you that it's happening. You know, for the bounty event, you have the carbonite chambers, you know, at the different corners of the fleet. But for, you know, the Gree stuff, or even the old Ratghoul or the Grand Acquisitions race, you had a news station, and it's just like a little hovering thing in the fleet that is glowing and pretty much asking for you to click on it, and that will give you all the story information you need and start pointing you in the right direction for the actual event itself. And once you've done that, you usually get a set of story missions that will lead you through the entire event. And once you've done that, it will start unlocking the dailies for you. And typically, those story missions that you have done will turn into dailies, just more repeatable versions of them, where you don't really have to get as many objects for, you know, fetch quests or stuff like that. But you usually have to do that. You usually have to do the story quest first, and then you get a set of dailies to keep repeating it, which then allows you to gather resources or any type of currency that it has, the event specifically, to buy any items or mounts or customizations that the event is offering to players as rewards. And while you're doing all of that, you're usually gaining reputation with the reputation associated with the event. And this, once again, goes hand in hand with the items and unlocks that you're going to be, purchasing with this, because most of them have a reputation, like a prerequisite on them. So you have to be a certain reputation before you can buy certain items. And then the basic structure of all this is pretty much that, and you just repeat it every time the event comes back up. And once you're maxed out with the rep, or you have all the items you have, the problem is that you probably won't ever do the event again, right? Because you become bored of it. That's usually a problem with events, but they have figured out a way to come around this, which is by adding new items to the event, such as the Gree event. They've added a couple new items there to kind of encourage players to continue to do the event a little bit, at least for, a couple days while it's available. Unfortunately, the antithesis of this formula is the newest event that was added to the game as of making this video, which is the Life Day event. And the Life Day event is kind of like a rushed event. Last year, they didn't have time to make an event for it. They just put cartel market items up. The reason why is because they were just doing the switch to free-to-play, in November, so they were still kind of getting used to the idea of being free-to-play, so they weren't worried about putting a Christmas event in, basically. Totally understandable, right? Well, now that they've added one, it doesn't really follow most of these formulaic things that you usually see, so I'm pretty sure we'll see something more in the formula next year when they have more time to add the content, because you got to keep in mind, this year they've been working on Galactic Starfighter, so that's where most of their time has been going. But the Life Day event is the antithesis, because basically you just throw snowballs until you get enough parcels to go buy items. There's no story, usually, there's no daily quest, and there basically are just a couple items that aren't attached to a rep. So it seems a little rushed, and that's to be expected, but for seasonal events coming into the game, I would say possibly expect this kind of thing if they're currently already working on major pieces of content. Fortunately, though, you guys don't have to just kind of guess when events are happening or when they're going to happen or what's going on with all that, because they've put up a page on their website, which I will put the link to on the screen, which is SWTOR.com/in-game-events. Once you go there, it will give you all of the information of the upcoming events, like the Bounty event or the Gree event, if they are currently going or if they are not, and when they are coming back. The best thing about this page is it tells you, if events are happening that aren't necessarily typical events, like the Life Day event. So even if you aren't currently subscribing to the game, currently playing it, but you heard about some type of event going, you could easily just go to this page, check it out, and then be able to hop on the game if something like this interests you. But following that formula, you could do literally any event in the game that they add, right? This is pretty standard, which means any event that they add in the future, you could pretty much just hop right in. You could go pick up the quest from the fleet, which is what they always do. Then you could go get your story missions, get through that, get your set of dailies unlocked, start gathering all the resources you need to unlock items, and start getting your reputation up. Boom. Those are all of the events in a nutshell, typically. Like I said, there are some exceptions like the Life Day event, but you guys will figure it out even with this formula in mind. However, with all of that being said, that wraps it up for any type of event talk that we needed to do. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below, and I'll try to get back to them as soon as possible. But we shall see you guys next time.